Sup, Nerdmigos? I'm the Jive Talking Nerd, John Norcroft. We've got Wife here, and we are back at it again for a long-awaited review Jive. It has been so long since we've done one of these. So, thank you. Welcome. This is going to be a review Jive for Barbenheimer.
That's right.
The double feature that the internet made a thing.
Yeah, of Barbie and Oppenheimer, if you've been underneath the social media rock for a while.
Yeah, any rocks. Underneath any rocks, don't know about this. What we're going to do, we're going to do a little bit spoiler-free, and then we're going to get into spoilers. The way that we're going to break this down is we're going to first give you a review of Barbie, then a review of Oppenheimer, and then a review of the experience that is Barbenheimer. So it's going to be broken down into little bits like that. And so before we get started and before we get into those reviews, don't forget to like this video, comment below, share, subscribe, ring a bell or what have you.
Do all the things.
Do all the things. Dance a jig, bop it, twist it, pull it. You know, the routine. Spoiler-free review. We're just going to go spoiler-free review style. Do you recommend Barbie?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, go see this movie. I don't want any details because I think that for the most amount of spoiler-freeness, go see this movie. For Oppenheimer, what do you think? Go see this movie in theaters? Wait for it for streaming. Don't see it ever.
I think if you're going to... Okay, so if you're really into the story of who Oppenheimer is, or if you really want the Barbenheimer experience, the double feature experience, go see it. If you're not super into it, definitely wait until it's out on streaming because it's 3 hours and lots of talking.
Yeah. So I think go see it in theaters. Now, we saw it in a regular theater, and it probably would be even more experience-y in an IMAX theater. But I think that even though it was 3 hours, and even though it is, like, mostly talking, I like the idea of seeing Oppenheimer in the theater, and I believe that the Barbenheimer binary is a must experience. All right, and we'll get into why when we get into that part of the spoiler-full review. What about you? Do you think that Barbie and Oppenheimer should be viewed in similar timelines?
I want to watch Barbie just on its own, but I think watching them together has a really interesting juxtaposition that I quite enjoyed.
Yeah. And as well as, so this isn't spoilers still, but the argument or the conversation, I should say, around Barbenheimer that we had at least was, should it be Barbie and then Oppenheimer or Oppenheimer and then Barbie? Our theater had the movies playing in such a way where we could have done both. We saw Barbie first and Oppenheimer second. I think that is the way you should watch these movies.
Totally agree.
I think you should see Barbie first and then Oppenheimer second.
Yeah.
However, if you have seen the Barbenheimer experience and you saw Oppenheimer first and Barbie second, comment below. Let me know what you thought about that experience. I think that I'll probably do Oppenarby, I guess would be the way that you would say that. I definitely think that I'm probably going to do an Oppenarby when the movies both come out for streaming, but I don't know that I'm willing to go to the theater for that, because that, like, literally sitting down for 5 solid hours for these two movies, like, ruined my back for 2 days, because I'm not a sit person, I'm a stand person. If you know me personally, you know that I tend to stand as often as possible. I don't sit. I don't like it. It's bad for me. And my poor back. But it was definitely an experience. Barbie clocks in at like hour 50,
it's
hour 45 or something.
Hours.
It's like just shy of 2. And Oppenheimer clocks in at like 2 hours 58, or like a hair under 3 hours. So you are looking at a 5-hour movie experience, which is a bold strategy. I also recommend, if you are going to do the Barbenheimer experience, make sure that your tickets are not back-to-back. Give yourself time for a meal in between. Give yourself a little break. In between, we had about an hour between our two shows in order to go get dinner, lunch for us,
have
lunch
some
nearby,
lunch,
have a snack,
and kind
sort
of decompress a little,
right before getting into the next theater, which I think is beneficial. But again, if you had the experience where it was back to back, boom boom, with no break, and you were just satiated on popcorn and soda alone, tell me what you thought about that experience. Also, if you have access to a theater that serves beer, I recommend that as well. It's gonna help. Because our theater serves beer. Shout out to those guys. But okay, so let's do a spoiler alerts. Spoiler alerts. That's spoiler alert hands. I'm probably just gonna use the graphic from Trek Jive. Because probably. I don't have a new Barbenheimer graphic. I might mess with the colors just for fun. So we'll see. You'll see, because I won't know until I'm literally editing this after dinner, because just to the side of me here, I am barbecuing. Well, smoking, technically, at this point.
So we don't know.
What I'm going to do, or if I remember. But, okay, so spoilerful review. We're just going to go in order. First Barb, then Inheimer, then Barbenheimer.
Yeah.
So, Greta Gerwig's Barbie.
Yeah, so before we talk about the movie, we have to talk about our pre-Barbie experience. So
yeah,
we have been pretty hype on this movie.
We've been so hype about Barbie, dude.
For a while.
Yeah, it looks dope.
And we heard about these two separate lists that the director Greta Gerwig and also separately Margot Robbie made of movies that inspired them to do Barbie, or while they were doing Barbie. And of these two lists, there were 3 movies that overlapped. And we watched those 3 movies before Barbie, and I think that it definitely heightened the experience. So these 3 movies were The Truman Show.
Yeah, well, we watched them, hold on, in order of we watched, we watched them in a random order. But first we watched Splash. Which I hadn't seen in a very long time.
Yeah.
Right?
I had not seen it either, and I was obsessed with Splash as a kid. I watched it a lot.
I don't know that I would go so far as to say that I was obsessed with Splash, but it was splashy.
Yeah. So we watched that, a fish out of water story.
Literally.
And
then The
Truman Show, which is basically the play on living in a fake world.
Yeah. Truman Show's fantastic. Enough said.
Yeah.
Right? Absolute banger.
And then we watched something we had never heard of before.
Not at all.
Called The Umbrellas of Cherbourg. And this is a French musical from the 1960s. And we had no idea what we were getting into.
It is, first of all, look this movie up. What did we watch it on?
We watched it on Max. Your mileage may vary.
Yeah. It depends on where you are and where it's available.
And this movie is basically uncomfortable truths being experienced and told in front of a background of bright psychedelic colors.
Yeah, so it's very painted scenes, bright colors. It's a musical, but not in a we're saying words and then we're singing and dancing.
Yeah.
It is every single line is sang.
But not obnoxiously. A lot of it is very low key.
Yeah, it's chill, but it's still singing the entire time.
Yeah.
Which is a little different. It's a really, really good movie.
Yeah,
I really, really enjoyed this movie.
We were shocked at how good this movie was.
It's super fun. And I'm Team Guy.
Team Guy.
Right?
Yeah,
he knew what was up. Leave her. She was toxic.
Basically, the shortest way that we can describe this is there's a girl who lives with her mother who owns an umbrella store in France, and
in Cherbourg, France,
and this girl falls in love with a man who is a soldier who ends up going off to war.
The Spanish War?
The French Indochina War.
The French Indochina War.
I looked it up. And she finds out that she's pregnant, and the mom is like, you gotta...
While he's, away.
Yeah, while he's away, it's definitely his.
Yeah.
And she doesn't tell him. And the mom's like, you gotta tell him, you gotta tell him, you gotta tell him. And also, I don't think he's good enough for you, and I think you should marry this rich guy, Roland, instead.
Yeah, Roland down the street,
So we spend a lot of time with the mother and the daughter trying to figure out what they're basically going to do here.
And she's not, Roland's I'm in on this. on this thing, and then she's like, oh, I'm not gonna tell Roland that I'm pregnant or whatever. But then the mom tells Roland, and Roland's just like, I'm okay with that. So
yeah, he's just like, whatever, I'll treat it as mine.
Inevitably like settles down with the rich guy and has a kid, and like everything seems fine there. But then Guy returns, and he gets home. Real quickly, he gets home. Come to find out, she married that rich guy, and her mom closed the shop. She's out.
Him.
She's just like out of town, right?
Yeah.
And she like didn't say nothing about nothing. So he finds this out from his mom, who is like literally like he gets home and he's like, "Mom, I'm home," and she's like, "That's gangster. I'm gonna die now," and then immediately dies. Like no time passes, right? She's just like, "That's dope. Here's the tea." Dead.
Yeah, but and then she had a caregiver that was taking care of her while he was away at war.
Is like, here's the rest of the tea. Like, all right, I guess I don't need to be here anymore. I should leave. And he's like, no. But I need you. And she's like, no. And he's like, no. But I need you. And she's like, okay, you're pretty hot. So they get married and have a kid. Happily ever after them. He's like a mechanic, and he starts his own shop and whatever. And like the delicious final scene in this movie is like the gal shows up with like a child girl, right, to get gas at his like shop gas station,
not knowing that it's
his, right? And he's like, come inside, let's talk. And so they go inside, and she's like, oh, look, I didn't hear from you, whatever. And he's like, is that my daughter? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, oh, that's like, she's okay or whatever. And she's like, yeah, the rich guy's taking care of us. And he's like, all right, cool. Well, I'm glad that you're happy. That's gonna be $14.95 for that gas. Thanks for coming to my service station. Deuces. And then she leaves, and he just like plays with his kid and like hugs his wife real hard. And you're just like, damn. It's amazing. Dog.
Yeah.
Guy for life.
Absolutely would watch it again.
Yeah, 100%.
We went through a whole gamut of emotions with this movie.
It's a fun movie. The backgrounds, let me tell you about maybe Fringe wallpaper in the 60s was like the most fire wallpaper of all time.
I think my favorite one is the one that was like bright green and blue and orange, and it was a motif of oranges, and my friends, the oranges were colored blue.
Yeah, it's like oranges, but like the oranges are blue and the leaves are orange, and the back sky and the sky is the green part.
So
it's like off kilter.
So anyway, we
fun.
watched these three movies to kind of like set the tone for seeing Barbie, and I think that they definitely enhanced watching it.
They definitely give you like more clarity about the sort of like motifs and design ideas that Greta Gerwig and Margot Robbie were like moving towards in this movie. Barbie is, and we're not going to go through like the entire plot of Barbie or whatever. It's like she's Barbie, then something's busted, and then she got to like go somewhere. I mean, like we're in the spoiler part, so like you've seen the movie, or you're crazy, which is fine. Also, I watch spoilery stuff all the time.
Well, basically, there's a problem in Barbie Land, and our Barbie has to go to the real world.
Our Barbie
to try
is
and fix
stereotypical
it.
Barbie. Best bit. Yeah. I love that she's just like, I'm stereotypical Barbie.
Yeah.
Right? Absolutely fantastic. We get introduced into the like sort of the like everything's perfect like universe of Barbie Land. And then like she gets like flat feet, and people are like about it.
Yeah. So I played with Barbies a lot as a kid, and Barbies is probably the thing that made me as into fashion as I am. If you're watching this and you're not a subscriber, subscribe, and then you can find out about how I talk about fashion a lot.
That's true. That's fair.
And if you know us personally, or if you do subscribe, you know that I'm always wanting to talk about the outfits. So I think I probably owe a lot of that to playing with Barbies when I was a kid. But we could not really afford a whole bunch of Barbie accoutrement. So watching
the Barbie booster packs
with like a delightful amount of ennui with this, because we couldn't afford a Barbie dream house. I never had the Barbie car. The outfits, I had like one of those like in the pack Barbie outfits. So this was like a really sweet ennui for me, because I loved playing with Barbie, and it was really fun for me, and watching all of this stuff was just like, oh, I remember that, and I had a friend that had that, and and all of the outfits that everybody wears in this are outfits from Barbie.
Like Barbie
officially, they are
TM
Barbie
outfits.
TM
Yeah.
outfits. In fact, I actually saw one of the Barbie outfits that I had for my Barbies.
Like
and,
in the show.
And it was like,
Yeah.
as a side in the thing, it was very exciting for me. But
Yeah.
everything in Barbie Land is, well, plastic. So, like, they go to the beach, and the beach doesn't have sand. It's just plastic.
Well, and
the
like
water
the waves,
is
and the
plastic.
waves are just
plastic.
and like the way that they move. I mean, they do this great job of making it very clear that Barbie Land is an artificial place.
Yeah.
Right. They really address the like artificiality of Barbie Land, like TM or what have you.
It was giving
and
me
it
like vibes of those like beach blanket bingo kind of movies
Sure.
with the beach sort of thing
Sure,
too.
yeah.
Where like this is shot on a stage, on a set, and you can like sort of envision pulling out and being able to see that as
Yeah.
sort of like a independent party, but like it makes it so fun.
Well, I think it's poignant to the idea that like Barbie lives, because Barbie in this movie is essentially like an egregore.
Yes, she is.
Right. So you get that sort of like artificiality, that sort of like hyper reality in the way that they do this, but you also start to see the initial cracks in Barbie Land as a function of Ken. So we're just gonna quickly everybody did a fantastic job in this. Margot Robbie absolutely slayed Barbie.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. America Ferrera.
What is
amazing.
America Ferrera was good. Who played Ken?
Ryan Gosling.
Fantastic.
And
So
literally
good.
everybody who was cast in this
So
did
good.
an amazing job.
Will, what's his name? The CEO of Mattel.
Oh, Will Ferrell.
Will Ferrell is an absolute gem in this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, he's such a gem in this movie where my inside, like, head canon for Barbie is that the CEO of Mattel in the Barbie movie is Elf.
From Elf.
From Elf. Just older now, and now he's the CEO of Mattel. And he still has that, like, kid-like wonder. And
Yeah.
Mattel, oh my god, those cubicles in Mattel.
So...
Gods,
one of the things
right?
that I really
So
love that this
good.
movie did in some like very specific scenes was nod to the Matrix, and we see this in Barbie Land.
The high heel and
There's a
Birkenstock.
high heel and a Birkenstock
Yeah.
that the weird Barbie uses to exemplify the
Weird
she has to
Barbie.
go to the weird she has to go to the
So
real
good.
world. That's the Birkenstock, or she can stay in Barbie Land, and that's the pink high heel. So that was a fantastic
Yeah,
Matrix
Barbie's
nod.
just like, I take the
and
heel,
then
and she's
also
like, no, it's not an option.
the running and chase scene going through the cubicles at the Mattel offices.
Yeah.
Very reminiscent of the Matrix.
Well, yeah, it's very Matrix, and it's also very like slapstick comedy.
Yeah.
You know, it was a very
Yeah,
slapsticky sort of a movie, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
Like I think that the way that they shot the movie, like all of the mechanical bits of the movie were fantastically well done. You could immediately feel the difference between Barbie Land and the real world.
Yes.
I think that the way that they addressed the real world was phenomenal.
Yes.
That scene, I mean, like best bits, right? Like I always go to. My best bit in this movie, singularly best bit, is two things. All right, when they first get to Venice Beach.
Yeah.
Yeah, when they first get to Venice Beach, and Barbie's like, I feel like I don't know, like internally something. Everybody seems to be staring at me, and Ken's like, I feel that too, and she's like, but mine has like an edge of violence to it, and like
Yeah.
discomfort, and he's like, mine does not have that at all. That is hilarious.
It is,
It was
yeah.
such a fantastic like series of events, and then of course they like keep getting arrested because they like don't have money and don't understand how the world works or whatever. So that's the best.
Yeah.
That's my first best bit, and then
Oh,
my
man.
second best bit is the fact that Ken thought that patriarchy had more to do with horses, and I fucking love that. I love that Ken was just like, at first I thought it was about horses, but then I found out it's not. But it's still awesome. And then he's just like rock and roll, like Ken with his silly outfits and his big fur coat. And the Kens, I kind of didn't expect the Kens to be such dynamically hilarious characters.
They
but
really
they are
were.
so good.
Yeah.
Right? Like the two main Kens beefing it out and then like realizing that we're both Kens and we're both suffering under the oppression of the Barbie, right? And then and then they're like, "Oh, hey, Ken, we were supposed to vote today." And they're like, "Shoot."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which was great. I love that the Barbies were like, "Oh, like we'll let you maybe in the future have a Ken who's in like a judge, but in like a lower court, not the Supreme Court." The like return to oppression is hilarious. Yeah, I think that those are some of my best bits, but definitely like the best bit is that initial like mine has an edge of violence to it, and Ken's like mine does not have that, because of course it's like, you know, like him there all abbed up and stuff. Right?
Yeah.
So like of course everybody's just like, good for you, buddy. Oof. Right?
I am
That dude had 27 packs so many
I
abs.
am having such a hard time thinking of what my best bits are, because I genuinely loved this movie so much.
It was good.
It really ran through the gamut of feels. So I'm just going to hit a few of these best bits here that I really loved. First of all, in the beginning and during the dance scene, Barbie is dancing in this beautiful disco outfit and everybody's doing this like very like choreographed dance number. And she's just like, "Do you guys ever think about death?" And then the music is like,
yeah.
And then she's like, "I mean, I'm just dying to dance."
Yeah. So good.
Hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
A fantastic opener for what ends up being a large existential crisis throughout this whole movie.
Barbie existentialism. You never would have thought about it. But there it is.
I really, really loved the moment when Ken was telling Barbie that he only exists in her warm gaze.
Yeah.
And because that's so crushing.
Yeah. Oh man.
So crushing.
Ken is the B plot of Ken's emotional journey in this movie is fucking heartbreaking, dude.
It really is.
Oh my
God. It really
God.
is. It
Poor
really
Ken.
is.
Somebody give that man a hug. I have already seen, like, I don't know if it's a joke or whatever, but I've already seen memes about I'm Knuff.
Yeah.
Bumper stickers and t-shirts, and I'm like, dude, I would buy a bumper sticker that says I'm Knuff. That
Absolutely.
is genuinely hilarious and heartwarming.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, right?
I absolutely loved the Ken's Mojo Dojo thing.
Mojo
It's
Dojo Dream House.
so hilarious. Such a funny
Casa-
take. Oh yeah,
Casa
Mojo
House?
Dojo
Dojo Casa?
Dream House Casa.
Dreamhouse Casa or something like
Casa
that.
Dream
Casa
House?
Dream House. It's so many words because he just like Ken brought this sort of like kid in a candy shop. He's like, I discovered patriarchy, kid in a candy shop. And I love that it took everybody's minds.
Yeah.
And then the way that they defeated it was just like explaining that you're better than this, and it rocked all of the Barbies like out of the patriarchy. I like that the patriarchy was treated more like a practical thing, right?
Yeah.
Like an earworm, like a song that's stuck in your head. It was treated almost like what are those mind control slugs or whatever from like Futurama.
Yeah.
You know, where it's just like, oh, have you heard of the patriarchy? Click, now you got it.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing.
I absolutely loved the Ken dance routine towards the end of the movie. It was hilarious and exquisitely done.
Yeah.
But mostly, the thing that sticks with me the most about this movie, full disclosure, I cried 3 times, y'all. 3. I am not a cry in a movie person.
Movie crier?
Generally, I'm not generally a movie crier, but I cried 3 times. I cried during America Ferrera's original rant.
Yeah, her first rant.
And one of her second rants, and I don't remember one of the
for
subsequent
the one
rants.
for the president, maybe?
Maybe. I don't remember exactly which one, but one of them. And then at the very end with Margot Robbie basically deciding if she's going to become a real girl. Those shook me. Those ruined me. I'm going to be thinking about
they were
for a while.
Very well written, very well delivered.
So poignant.
Very well delivered.
I definitely have experienced many of those things that they talked about in those rants, and that is one of the reasons why that shook me so much. But overall, this movie has everything. And
it's got action, it's got comedy.
I think that the
emotions.
rewatchability of it is going to be fantastic. And somebody that we follow on Instagram, I think it's Head on Fire, he said that he thinks that this movie has the potential to be like a cult classic to the level of like Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh.
I know that's setting it up big, but
Totally.
there are so many things that you could do with this in like a cult theater experience where you're bringing props and you're singing along and you're saying certain lines along.
I feel
there's so much
even
that you can do with that.
The initial viewing felt sort of cult classic-y already. Like, we had a bunch of people in our theater, had a bunch of people dressed up, which is awesome. I love to see
we dressed in
all
our
these people.
closest Barbie fits possible.
Yeah.
I had like a
bunch of people
whole
were dressed
curated
up.
Barbenheimer outfit.
Super cute. It was like, it's a fun movie. I feel like very easily you could sing along to the music.
Has been in everybody that I have talked to or heard of that's seen this movie has seen a bunch of people who have seen it. And I have noticed as we've done things like throughout the last like weekend or so, how many women have Barbie pink nails. Because I did Barbie pink nails.
Totally.
I had to do it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I definitely think this is one of those movies that like everybody's gonna love.
Yeah.
And based on the like, we haven't seen like a bunch of reviews or anything yet, but like based on the few people that I've seen or heard of who've made reviews about this movie thus far, I feel like there's only one or two people who weren't into the movie, and they are precisely the kind of people you would expect to take this movie and blow it way out of proportions and make it some sort of flippin' drama. And those people are dumb. So yeah, this is definitely one of these movies where I feel like if you watch Barbie and it makes you feel upset, like you are being attacked by the movie Barbie,
then you need to do some soul searching.
Then you're the actual problem, and you should shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Like, I don't, like, go away and then figure it out.
Yeah.
Go into the woods and then come back in 20 years with, like, a big beard and wisdom to not be an asshole.
Yeah.
You know what
exactly.
I mean? Like,
so I
go on a journey.
I would say see it.
Oh my God.
Absolutely
Yeah.
see it.
Like, in theaters, I think that this is a movie that definitely benefits the theater experience.
Yes.
Go see this movie. Go enjoy this movie, and then
also
be prepared to see it again.
Go
you're gonna want to see it
without expectations.
Yeah,
I think going in with, I mean, even though we had very high expectations, I would say go in without expectations, because I'm sure that by the time that you're watching this, everybody has been talking about it. It has been everywhere. The media marketing has been everywhere, and you might be tired of it by now.
Yeah.
Or maybe you've heard people saying negative things about it. Regardless, go in without expectations, but absolutely see it.
Yeah.
But try to see it in the theater so that you can internalize the process of seeing it yourself.
It's one of those movies that I think definitely benefits from that theater experience, and I cannot wait for it to come out on streaming to watch again. I am fully prepared to watch this movie right now. If it was available on streaming, we would put that shit on tonight.
Yes.
Like, without question, right?
Yeah.
And we saw Barbenheimer, like, for clarity's sake, we saw Barbenheimer Friday and today is Monday. So like 4 days ago.
So we saw it opening Friday.
Yeah, we saw it opening Friday. And like the first showing at like whatever 10:45 in the morning was Barbie or whatever.
Yeah.
So then we took our little lunch break. Lunch was good. And then we sat down into Oppenheimer. So let's move right on to Oppenheimer. And this, I think that this is the kind of movie that some people are going to enjoy a bunch, which is like, I really, really liked this movie. Like, a lot. I really like this. And I think that before, like, when we were driving to the theater, I think we were talking about how I'm not generally a big Christopher Nolan fan.
That is correct.
Yeah, I'm not generally a big Christopher Nolan fan. Like, they're okay, man. Like, you know, the classics or whatever. It's all right, man. But this movie was really good. But also, I am definitely 100% the target audience. Like if you're an action movie boy and you want to see big explosions, fake news. Don't go see this movie, dog.
Yeah.
There's one explosion. I mean, it's dope, but there's one. So
if you're like a physics person,
but if you're like a physics nerd,
this is the right
and
thing.
a history of physics nerd, you are gonna
or
be
like a history buff,
You are gonna be so hyped, dude.
or like a World War II person.
Every fucking time one of these scientists came on screen, I was just like, ah, because I've read their papers and I've read the histories and all this, and I actually want to read the book that Oppenheimer is based on. I did not, going into this, know that it was based on a book at all. But that's like displayed at the end of the credits or whatever the heck. But Oppenheimer was fantastic. It is slow. It is moody. It is like
a lot of talking.
It is 99% talking.
A lot of talking.
It is talking and sitting and talking and walking. Two kind of talking in this movie.
A lot of like
and walking.
high-end, like intellectual concepts being addressed.
Oh
also.
yeah, they're bandying about.
This is a brain-heavy movie.
Yeah. But if you are not into the physicists thing, or you are not looking for like a long sort of like talky, thinky movie like that, I think you're not gonna have an enjoyable time.
Or as
right?
an enjoyable time.
Yeah, well, I think it's like, if you go into this expecting a bunch of nuke explosions, like if you're just like, there's gonna be a bunch of big, beautiful bombs going off,
not at all.
Then you are gonna leave the theater fucking angry.
This is not that movie.
You know, not at all, this movie.
So, to put it into perspective, this movie is a story about the man, Oppenheimer, and his journey towards being the father of the atomic bomb.
Yeah, it basically starts with, so the movie starts with Oppenheimer going to college, right? And ends with him basically like kind of getting like the media ruining his life and him disappearing.
Yeah,
for an abundant
so
lack
this
of better
movie
words.
is told through a series of flashbacks.
So there's
that are
four
in,
distinct timelines.
Yeah, there's like different
occurring,
timelines,
and you jump between them pretty regularly, which I think that Nolan did a good job making it clear which timeline you were in by the use of like black and white footage and like very specific set pieces and color footage, which I enjoyed, and I think that clarified it a great deal.
Yeah.
Everybody in this movie did such a good job acting. I'm like jumping all over the place here, but RDJ was fantastic. Who did we realize was playing the president?
well, first of all, Robert Downey Jr. plays a phenomenal role in this movie.
Yeah,
I think
piece of
that
shit,
this
guy.
is a really great way for him to come out of being a Marvel superhero into being in more serious movies as he grows older.
Yeah.
And I'm not throwing shade.
He's been in serious movies
before,
but
and he's still got like
while.
life in him and stuff. But I think that this really like is sort of the beginning of a new chapter in his career.
Yeah.
And his performance was just magnificent.
Yeah, he was so good in this.
Absolutely.
I feel like there's one scene that we were talking about when the movie first got over where he is like where it's like sort of revealed that like this like he's on top of the world, he's got this blah blah blah, and then it's like revealed that like bad news bears and he's not going to get the thing that he wanted put in the cabinet or whatever by the president. And I swear mid-sentence this dude's face ages like 5 years.
Yeah.
It's bonkers. Like I don't know if it was like a camera trick or like a makeup, like everybody stand still, apply a little bit of wrinkles on this dude or CGI or some shit, but it was so good. RDJ absolutely crushed him. I mean, like, everybody did a phenomenal job, and there are so many good actors in this that it's like kind of hard to like name all of them, right?
Yeah.
But for me, the three
I think because
were
of the twist,
Oppenheimer, his buddy, and RDJ.
Yeah, I think because of the twist, Robert Downey Jr. to me has the most magnificent performance in this, because he really goes through some very specific character arcs in this, which is pretty cool to watch. And yes,
I totally agree. I think that Robert Downey Jr. is definitely the best character arc, and I think he did the best overall acting, even though Cillian Murphy?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Cillian Murphy. Whatever. Cillian Murphy did a fantastic Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
And also, can we talk about how much of a womanizer Oppenheimer is?
A thing I did not know.
A thing that I did not know either.
Yeah.
So there we go. I was more interested in the physics and less about the ladies. For Oppenheimer's life story, I guess. That's on me, I think. But like, he did a great job, and like, his wife was fantastic. Who's that? Emily Blunt, right?
Yeah.
Is that what we figured out is? Like, she did a fantastic job. I really like his buddy constantly just bringing him like slices of orange or apple or whatever. Just like, you're hungry, eat some food.
The kid who was the the main elf from the Santa Claus movies.
Yeah. I think that's who that is.
He was fantastic.
He did fantastic in it. No, this is a really good movie. It's
Matt
real
Damon
movie.
did a fantastic job
Slade,
too. Yeah. I mean, really, everybody did a fantastic
job. Bad general, that kid, who I recognize him from something. Also,
same, but I don't know.
But whatever that is, everybody did a really good job. I think that the movie did a fantastic job exemplifying panic attacks.
Yeah.
Right? It really made you feel... I mean, the whole movie really made you feel like you were, like, in Oppenheimer's head, and you were going through his, like... sort of, like, his fears, his problems, his doubts, his worries, as well as his joys, which is fantastic. I like the way that... there's a specific scene that stands out, and this is actually my best bit, is where... So because of the timeline being, like, the time being jumpy in this, we, like, see him have a panic attack in the future where we hear, like, boots stomping and, like, people cheering and, like, bright light. And then later on in the movie, you see that that's actually what happened when he made the announcement to the entirety of like to his like crowd at the base and was like, hey guys, we dropped the bombs and we hit the targets and they both went off and like we won the war and everything's great, America and all this kind of stuff. And he's like saying these things and you can like hear the sound like dying out as he's like walking through this room because he's like trying to resist this panic attack about this thing that he's so afraid that like I just started nuclear Armageddon, sort of a fear. And so you really get this, like, kind of great, like, jumping around. You get to see why this panic attack happened in this manner, right? And you later learn what triggered that panic attack, And it did a fantastic job really putting you in, like, that, like, worry. You know what I mean? Of him being like, oh, no. About those things, which for me, that was the best bit, was specifically the, like, you see the panic attack first, and then later on you see this boot stomping thing, and you see that he had a panic attack then also, and you see how his panic attacks are linked.
Yeah.
Right? Through, like, experiential sort of stuff. And then second best bit is the way that they tried to visually indicate that he could, like, that he was seeing, thinking, and understanding elementary particles and forces, right? Through the, like, vibrating strings and the, like, dust motes and, like, all of that. I really, really like that. Like, I know it's a very art filmy, right? But I loved it. I was very here for it. It reminded me of several sci-fi books that I've read that specifically talk about, like gifted people who can understand the universe better and like how like a mote of dust in a sunbeam through a hole in the tent like caused them to understand some dynamic universal constant just because they were able to see movement that like the rest of us couldn't perceive. I loved it. They did such a good job with that. Right? Mm-hmm. And then obviously, I mean, it's weird to put this at the third best bit, but the bomb was dope. And the silence in this fucking theater. When you see the flash and you like see the thing and then it's cut into characters and all you're hearing is the like sort of like leather boots squelching and the like ruffling of clothes and the like crunching of a paper until that bang hits. And it hits. Like, I think this is another one of those. I think that an IMAX experience is like the Jazzy Jeff that you want of that, which we just saw it in a regular theater, but it's still fantastic.
Yeah, and to be clear, the bomb part is not the very end of the movie. There's stuff that happens after that, like pretty significant
the bomb is like really the
things.
middle of the movie.
Yeah.
which it's because it's not important.
Well, it's because it's not a movie about the bomb. It's a movie about the guy.
Yeah.
So
totally.
Full disclosure, I think that as a standalone movie is different than the experience for Barbenheimer. So as a standalone,
right now we're just talking about Oppenheimer. We'll do Barbenheimer
movie,
in a second.
Not a huge fan. I'm not like a super physicsy person, although I do probably know more than the average person just because of you.
That's fair. I do lecture about physics quite often.
So, so I wouldn't even, like, I knew who the guy was, but I didn't know literally anything about him, really, other than stuff that you had told me and seeing the movie. So this was kind of like, as somebody going in, not really knowing what this is about.
Yeah.
I was not really a fan of this movie. It was very brain heavy. There was a lot of talking. There were some, like, very cool ways that they switched it up, but I think that for me, the thing that killed it the most was just like the sheer artsiness of it. All of the cuts between different timelines was fine, but when you add in all of the like weird moments where you're just like getting like 3 to 5 seconds of just some sort of like ambient thing, it's like dust motes, and I'm just like, why?
Oh, I loved it. I loved it so much. I
You
loved
know,
it so
and
much. It's so artsy. And, like, don't get me wrong.
And the
this
sound
movie is
design.
so in its own ass.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
The sound
who cares?
design,
It was awesome.
I was not a fan of. So I think that what they tried to do for the sound design was try to mimic this idea of that scene with the bomb. Like, they basically started the sound design of the scene with the bomb. So when the bomb goes off, it's very quiet and you can hear everything, including like small ambient room sounds. And then it's a very loud explosion. And that makes sense. But they basically tried to do this throughout the entire movie, and it just was like the movie
does ping pong pretty heavily between quiet and loud scenes.
It was honestly quite jarring. I think if the sound design had not been quite so like
Atomic
crazy
bomby.
quiet and like really loud explosions, it would have been better. So like there's a scene that is earlier on in the movie, and during this scene Oppenheimer is like in a car. He's like driving to a place. There's nothing terribly exciting happening in this scene, but he's in a car, he's getting out of this car, he's walking into a building, and the music, this orchestral music, which is beautiful, was so loud, was just as loud as the pitch for the explosion of the bomb in this movie. It was so absurdly loud that I was like, why the fuck is this music so loud? And then he gets into the building and it is just quiet and it's just a bunch of dudes talking about physics stuff. And I'm just like, what the fuck?
I love the sound design, so I disagree.
If it wasn't as artsy, or if the sound design wasn't as, shall we say, edgy,
bombastic?
that it wasn't so bombastic, then I probably would have enjoyed this experience more.
Bipolar.
But I found myself going through times where I kind of didn't like sitting in this movie because it was so pretentious.
The movie was very loud. And
so
again,
artsy
it's
and
way in its
so
own,
loud.
It's way in its own
However,
ass.
the twists with Robert Downey Jr.'s character, which I know is like a real life thing. So like, is it a twist? I didn't know it was a twist to me. That was
Fair.
baller. And the very end with Einstein and Oppenheimer talking, which is actually like a throwback to something in the very beginning of the movie, was so good.
Yeah.
Like it was on paper a fantastic movie, but had we only been seeing it at the theater by itself,
you would have been upset.
I would have probably been a little annoyed. I mean, if you wanted to see it, I would still see it. But if it was up to me, if it was my choice, I would not have seen this until it came to streaming.
Yeah.
And I would have had to take several breaks during said movie.
I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. It's a good movie. It's definitely in its own ass. It's definitely very artsy. It's definitely very like.
If you're a Nolan fan, like
if you're a Nolan fan, you're probably gonna love it. I'm
yeah.
not a Christopher Nolan fan by far. So like the fact that I enjoyed it, and as well as I'm not really like an artsy film person.
No, you were not.
The fact that I enjoyed it, I think, is purely because all of the loudness and quietness, like the bipolar sound and all of the weird artsy stuff, I think I was able to sort of like just ringing ear ignore those. Because the physics part was so fun. And when they're just like, oh, I gotta go talk to Niels Bohr, and you're just like, ah!
Oh, it was also,
I feel like if you don't know who these people are,
No.
or you don't know, like, the things that they're talking about, like, you only understand what's being presented in the movie.
It was like Heisenberg,
you'll-
and I was like, is that the uncertainty principle guy? What is the uncertainty principle? I don't even know.
Yeah.
It was...
I feel like if all the, like, physics and scientists bits that you get are from the movie, I think you can still certainly enjoy the movie.
Yeah.
But I think it's definitely one of those things where if you know about these people and their story and, like, the history and, like, the science surrounding these people, I think I think you definitely, for sure, get way more out of the movie.
Yeah.
Right? If you just know that Einstein's like an old asshole who doesn't like quantum mechanics, like, that's gangster.
I didn't know that.
But if you
At
know
all.
more about the history and the story and the fight with Einstein and how he disagreed with quantum mechanics so heavily and how he was writing papers until the very end trying to find, like, more reason in a universe as opposed to, you know, a bunch of chaos like what quantum physics was predicting, and all these other scientists, and as well as, like, little hints here and there, like the H-bomb hint. Like, we understand that an H-bomb is a thing, right? But, like, this guy being like, well, look, if we could do this, why can't we use hydrogen? You're like, oh shit, this is like the beginning of these thoughts. Like, it for me as, like, a fucking physics nerd, right, and history nerd about this stuff, I was very in, and I think that allowed me to sort of kind of like a lot of that art housey stuff, as well as a lot of that art housey stuff sort of fed into some, like, science fiction stuff that I've already, like, read. I think that the more enjoyable experience for me, however, will be the book.
Perhaps, yeah.
Right?
So,
because I kind of care more, like, I want Oppenheimer, but with, like, less art and more history. Like, give me a host and make it a 6-hour, like, you know, like, mini series on the History Channel, and I will gobble that shit up, dog. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was good, but we could have more.
Would you say people should see it?
I think that if you are a physics fan or nerd, I think if you're, like, a science fan or nerd in general, I think that if you're a whatever the director's name is,
Christopher Nolan.
If you're a Nolan fan or nerd, go see it, and go see it in the theaters. I definitely think this movie benefits from the theaters. I think that there is a chance, because I'm not going to go see this movie again in theaters, I think there's a chance that our theater may have been a little too cranked, and so the speakers couldn't keep up. I think that Christopher Nolan makes his movies specifically for IMAX, which, if I am correct, and correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I believe IMAX has more dynamic range in their speakers, which means it wouldn't have sounded as bipolar, nor as, like, tinny. Some of the orchestrations and some of the sound design felt like it sounded blown out, if you know what I'm talking about, in, like when a speaker is, like, pushed beyond its frequency
But we won't know
response.
that until...
But we won't know that until literally until it
again.
comes out.
Yeah.
And I'll probably watch it when it comes out at home, where it, like, I don't have fancy speakers. Like, let's not pretend that. But I do have the speakers that I have dialed in pretty cleanly, and I don't have to listen to a movie, like, cranked up to 1,000,000, because I have hearing. So that will be interesting to see then. I think that this is probably a better experience in IMAX, and I think that if you think you would be into this movie, I think you should see it. I think that if you watch the Oppenheimer trailer and you're like, oh, it's another Christopher Nolan movie about this science man, and it's a period piece, you're probably not going to enjoy this movie. And that's totally fine. For that, I would recommend you wait. Put it on at home. When you can pause it, go get a beverage, look up a word online, you know, like that kind of thing, right? Because I think that that's gonna make it more digestible, and more appetizing, But I think that if you are a fan of those things, I think that the movie experience is worth it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What about you?
I basically think the same thing, but with less words. Like, if you looking at the trailer for this movie or knowing what this movie is about, think this is a thing that I would enjoy, Go ahead.
Yeah, you're probably going to
Go
enjoy
ahead.
it then.
If you have a bunch of friends or maybe a significant other that's like, hey, let's go see this movie, I would say go see it. But if you are maybe thinking about going to go see it just because of the hype and you're not particularly interested in any of the bits, and are maybe not the biggest Christopher Nolan fan, I'd wait.
Yeah,
This
I would
was
pass.
not an unenjoyable movie. I did enjoy the movie, but this was nowhere near a top tier movie for me at all.
Sure, totally. I don't know that I would call it top tier. I thoroughly enjoyed the movie.
This was very
But-
lower mid.
But
There's plenty of movies I'd rather watch.
to unsmoothly transition into the Barbenheimer, compared to Barbie, I think Barbie's a better movie. Like,
Yeah.
overall, a better movie.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Barbenheimer experience.
The Barbenheimer experience. So, just to kind of like speed up the that I know that I'm gonna do that I can't stop. What was your take on? We're just gonna sort of like generalize our takes and then let you guys go because we've been talking at you for a while. So, what was your take on the Barbenheimer experience?
I think that the Barbenheimer experience was everything that the hype had it up to be. And I think that watching Barbie before Oppenheimer actually was a really great choice. It ended up that timing worked out better that way for us. But I think
Also.
I think that was the better choice to have made. And because you watch Barbie and it's like it's like when you drink some coffee, you're like hype and you're up here and you're like, your energy level is up here. And then as you go through the Barbie movie, there are themes of existential dread and self-worth and what does it really mean to be a human and what is the human condition and why are humans so awful sometimes and how
Real
can we
trash people.
fix that? And that's Barbie. And then we took a little bit of a break and then we went into Oppenheimer and Oppenheimer really actually deals with a lot of the same sort of things.
like
You're
overall
talking
themes,
about
yeah.
like what is the human experience? Why are humans sometimes
What's-
so evil?
what's the value of life?
What's
What
the value
happens if we do these
of one
terrible
life?
things?
What's the value of 10,000 lives?
Yeah.
And like what is the value of a better understanding of the universe that you live in? When the weight is knowing that many people will die because of this, but perhaps not as many people as if you didn't do it,
Yeah.
but also it needs to be done. So I think that this was a fantastic double feature, even though I was not as big of a fan of Oppenheimer, but they really did echo the same themes across it. And I think that watching Barbie before Oppenheimer, Barbie allows you to get the jazz out of your system to have like a really serious mental movie
have, like, a
going
conversation
on. Whereas
with
if we
Oppenheimer.
had watched it opposite, I would have been very tired mentally going into Barbie, and I think it wouldn't have hit quite as hard. And
Yeah.
I think that the themes of existentiality and stuff like that don't quite flow as well, because basically you're looking at Barbie at a peak that goes down into Oppenheimer with the sort of like feelings there. But if you do it the opposite way, you're kind of I think it would feel a little incongruous.
Yeah,
so
I think it would feel jarring.
Barbenheimer, absolutely do it
100%
if you can.
yeah.
Absolutely. What did you think?
Yeah. Okay. So Barbenheimer.
Five words or less.
5 words or less.
Just kidding.
Do it now. No, I think Barbenheimer is easily the most random, insane, and fantastic thing that has happened in a very long time for movies. I think that the Barbenheimer experience is an absolute must-see. Like, if you have any opportunity whatsoever, and if you've already seen Barbie and you just haven't seen Oppenheimer yet, go see Barbie again. You gotta do them back to back. I mean, you can put a meal between them, right? You go get dinner or whatever the heck. But I think you have to experience it. When we left Oppenheimer and we were like heading home, I sort of like coalesced my thoughts, like initial thoughts on the experience of Barbenheimer. And I think the best way to explain Barbenheimer is that Barbenheimer is a psychedelic experience. All right, Barbenheimer is a really, really good analog for a psychedelic experience. You start with this like fun, hype, bright high of the beginning of Barbie, and you're like, this is going to be great, and I'm beginning this experience, and like I'm going into this, and everything feels fantastic and great. And then as you start to sort of like peak,
and everything is very visually appealing.
It's like vivid, because Barbie's like a very vivid movie, right? So as this vividness is happening, right, and you start to peak, that's when Barbie starts to introduce, right, like the vibe of Barbie peaks, and that's when Barbie starts to introduce a little bit of that existential dread, a little bit of that shadow work that all psychedelic experiences sort of have the potential to put have the potential to put you in, where you're starting to ask sort of like profound questions that you wouldn't traditionally ask yourself, but now are flowing more freely, right? And you feel this sort of like existentialism, but you're never.
And you still have some of the fun, upbeat vividness.
Well, yeah, because you're never like, it's never downer existential dread, which is, I know, like a fucking weird sentence to say, but it's like you're getting to experience this sort of existential questions and these ideas, but from the perspective of like, oh, okay, well, like this is chill and like everything's still like vivid and dope and pretty and all this kind of stuff, right? And then Barbie sort of ends with like a nice little like nod and a laugh, right? Everything sort of works out, but there's still that like like that feeling, that like vibration in the back of Barbie where you're like, this was a great movie and this is fun, but we fucking suck, dog.
But like, we were revealed some truths.
Yeah, we fucking suck, dog. We got to look into this, right? And then you sit down for Oppenheimer, and I think that Oppenheimer, for my experience, Oppenheimer starts not necessarily as high as Barbie does, but it starts at a high point, right? Yeah. It starts at this kid going to school, and he's the best at what he's doing, and he's learning Dutch in a week or whatever, right? And it starts with this sort of highness, and then slowly you start experiencing more of his panic attacks, and you start experiencing the weight of the things that he's doing, and
things are becoming more serious
and less vivid and more real and grounded. And that feels like the like sort of long, like if Barbie is sort of like a sharp upward with like a bit of a peak that's got some existential dread in it, then Oppenheimer does a fantastic, because Barbie ends like just a little bit moving down, but like but you're still up, right? And I think Oppenheimer starts at a good height, right? And then slowly brings you kind of back down to reality in a nice way, where it's still interesting and you're still kind of getting those moments. And I think that like the bomb going off is that like last spike during your come down, when you're just like, oh, like something kind of profound sort of rocks again, then you kind of like feel that for a little bit, and then immediately everything's like very, very normal, and you're sort of like guided quite gently back down into reality, where you're just like, now I understand, like I had this experience about how shitty people can be, right, and how we can fight against that, and now I'm applying that knowledge gained on high to this lower real world, right?
Yeah, you're incorporating that experience into the real world,
into your interpretation of the real world,
reinterpreting it, and trying to find a place to like use that, and then it sticks with you as an experience, because they are really sort of so the same, but also so opposite movies that it's like when you wake from an especially vivid dream. Yeah,
well, and Oppenheimer has this sort of like, the movie ends like when Barbie ended, you get this feeling of like, oh yeah, that was great, and Oppenheimer ends, and you get this feeling like, I'm gonna get to my car.
Yeah,
I gotta throw this popcorn away. Like the movie ends, and I enjoyed the movie, right? So it's not like a dig at the movie, but it ends very practical, very real.
Yeah, right? The movie ends and you're just like, well, that's done now.
Yeah, you're like, this is over, and like, and then you get that sort of that like I call it de-resed, right? You get that sort of de-resed experience throughout the next couple of days after experiencing the like weird psychedelic internet nonsense that is the Barbenheimer, right? Where you're like constantly reanalyzing the two movies and the experience, and you're like finding new fun bits or new things that you were learning from. Like there's a scene in Oppenheimer where he's talking to his guys that like hit when it happened, but like not as much as when I thought about it after the movie, where he's talking to his guys and he's like, hey, like we just invented the atom bomb. we're the best. Everybody celebrate. But also, remember, we might be the villains of history if shit goes sour. So we might be the worst people of all time. Be prepared for that to be an option.
Yeah.
Which is like kind of a bonkers thing to say.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and
but
I
it's
think
it's
that
so poignant in that moment for him to say that.
A really nice juxtaposition with one of the concepts that they deal with primarily in the beginning, but really throughout the whole Barbie movie, which is the whole idea for Barbie was originally to empower girls and women. And
don't now that we exist, all girls are empowered and women are get to live their dreams and everybody's strong.
And like
and
maybe we didn't,
true.
you know, like we didn't really quite hit that quite as hard as we thought we did, but like people tried. So it's kind of one of the things that strikes me about this experience is sort of the value behind trying to do the good, the noble thing,
the right thing,
and knowing that you tried to do the right thing, even if somebody takes that right thing and sort of changes the lens that people see through it
and makes it
doesn't
negative.
negate you trying to do the right thing.
Yeah. Well, and you see the like at the end of Oppenheimer, you see bad people doing bad things, being manipulative, and like the cost of that manipulation when truth is revealed.
Yeah.
You know? So I think that this was a absolutely bonkers and fantastic experience. I highly, highly recommend it. And even if you can't make it to the theaters because of whatever, I think that you definitely need to wait for both of these movies to come out and then experience them back to back in your own living room. You know? So I think that it was 100% do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Highly recommend the Barbenheimer experience.
Yeah. Barbenheimer, best Heimer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of talking, but it's so many things to say about this. Comment below, what were your best bits of those two movies? What was your experience with Barbenheimer? Did you only see one of them and now you are interested in seeing the other? Did you think Oppenheimer was too arty? Because it kind of was. What did you think of the experience if you experienced Barbenheimer? And especially for people who watched Oppenheimer first and Barbie second, let me know how that went, because that is to me a very interesting way of doing this, especially with the hindsight of like having seen the movies in the manner in which we did, and now I'm like in, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, either way, I have been John Norgrove. This has been Wife. This has been Review Jive. We watched Barbie and Oppenheimer, the internet colloquial Barbenheimer, and it was weirdly amazing. A long day. It hurt my back, but totally worth it.
Well worth the meme sensation.
Well worth the meme sensation. Good job, internet. You guys did it.